and youth sexual reproductive health.
Yes.
Is there anything parents need to pay attention to as these young people develop?
Yes, there are lots of things that parents need to pay attention to when it comes to adolescent youth sexual reproductive health. It will interest parents to know that the young mind is very ambitious, is very it is open to development and is open to wanting to access information, very inquisitive. But then we will be too careful to not understand that as their minds are very inquisitive, their bodies, their minds, there are a lot of other things that interact with them. So they need to have the ability and the capacity to understand their sexuality in the context of the biology, like I said, the psychology, sociocultural, and reproductive dimensions. Now, this will help them to acquire skills in making decisions. How can they negotiate and say, I don't want this? How can they negotiate and reject advances that are in the area of sexual intercourse? How can they negotiate and say, I would prefer to delay this and face my academics? So all of these components that affect their decision when it comes to access, we talk about sexually transmitted diseases. How can they access information that will help them know that if I engage in early sexual intercourse, there are repercussions. Apart from pregnancy, there are sexually transmitted diseases, some of which have been attributed to certain cancers. They're talking about human papilloma virus attributed to cervical cancer. Are these young people able to dictate early detection of cancer? Can they perform some form of breast examination? Certain things that can affect their reproductive life in future. Can they have access to this information? So these are the components of this. These are the components of this sexual reproductive health information that helps the boy and the girl child, teenagers, to be able to make decisions that will later affect their sexuality. Of course, these decisions are not just limited to the sexual and reproductive needs alone. If you have a productive young person that has a skill, we know that he will be emotionally balanced and will be able to cater for his family later in future. That is also an aspect of it. If you have a young person that is engaged physically, does something, he will be able to have a skill that will help him not feel depressed or not being involved in things like drugs and substance abuse. All of these are part of those components of sexual and reproductive health, because all of the stages of development have to be put in place for them to become productive adults later on in future.
There are some parents that fear.
Yes.
That when this kind of information is made available,
yes,
instead of encouraging it, to rather push these young people,
yes,
into life of waywardness.
Okay.
How do you encourage this? Talk to this kind of parent.
Okay, so I will start by saying that if the current trend continues, we stand to lose quite so much. Why do I say that? And why are we so deliberate about sexual and reproductive health for this age group? Now, I would just like to draw us a little to understand the context.
Yeah.
When we are talking about young people, we are talking about people from the age of 10 to 24 years. Now, when you talk about adolescents, you are talking about people between the ages of 10 to 19. And these particular people in this age group account for about 22% of Nigeria's population, based on the data that has been provided by United Nations Population Fund. 22% seem abstract. But when you are looking at Nigeria with over 200 million, you are talking about nothing less than 44 million people. Taraba State is just 3 million. 3-point-something million, roughly 3.4 thereabout. If you take the 22% of that, you're talking about people over 770 something. Now, if we have that number of people with their large number of problems, what can we offer? If status quo continues, have we considered the unplanned pregnancies around? Have we considered school dropouts? In our current parlance, if a girl is pregnant, she does not have the capacity to continue school. There are no infrastructure that will help her still, continue in school and still carry that pregnancy. You talk about school dropout, you talk about the number of rape cases that are seen, whether we discuss them or we don't. We talk about on the street children. We talk about begging and pilfering, pickpockets. We talk about criminality, criminal abortion. We are talking about, child mortalities. Because if this lady or if this girl between this particular age group that is not physically mature to carry a pregnancy, and probably with the level of our health infrastructure is not being taken care of properly, you're talking about complicated or obstructed labor. That girl might end up developing what we call vesicovaginal fistula due to the obstruction. Have you seen ladies or girls that are leaking urine or feces from their vagina? Why? Because of obstructed labor. So if we don't talk about these things, these are the possibilities that will happen. But if we talk about them, what do we stand to benefit? We stand to benefit from people, we stand to guide a certain population that will delay sexual intercourse. As it is right now, the average age as first sexual debuts, that is the age at which a particular young boy or young girl engages in sexual intercourse in Nigeria averagely is put at 15 years. Can I tell us, a study was conducted in Taraba State, and it was found out that the age for Taraba State is way younger. It's way younger. You are talking about people engaging in sexual intercourse at the age of 13 and 11 for females and males respectively. Now, it means that if they are exposed to certain infectious diseases and infectious agents, it means that these people are already on the down road when it comes to their reproductivity. Now, what do we need to do? We need to equip them with skills. Like I said earlier, these skills come from are skills that they need to have, life skills. Because life planning will help you to acquire life skills. Now, what are these life skills? Negotiation skills. They need to understand self-esteem. They need to understand the issue about their sexuality, self-control. They need to understand what it means to have safe or unsafe sexual intercourse. Now, why do they need to know this? They should know that young people need to understand that for everything you are engaged in, there is what we call cause and effect. It is popularly said that you may not decide, you can decide what you do, but you might not necessarily decide the outcome of your actions. A young man or a young woman, youths need to know that if they engage in sexual intercourse, there are repercussions. Pregnancy, as it were, might be the least of their problems. Because at the end of the day, you get pregnant, God helping you, you deliver, that might just be it. But what if you contract the human papilloma virus? That years down the line, you begin to have bleeding. Years down the line, they go and do what we call a pap smear and then discover you have cervical cancer. We don't have the vaccine readily available in Nigeria. Now, when we talk about negotiation, which is one of those things, one of those skills that young people need to have for them to be able to plan their life,